What's up, internet? My name's Ori. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. You like this video, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. You'll never miss a video. You'll never miss a stream. Today, we're going over Digital Daily number 15. And oh boy, was this a good one. There's a lot to go over. A lot of ways this week can go still right now. But man, things didn't even go exactly the way we expected from the last daily. Nominations weren't the same. We know who won veto. We maybe know who a potential backdoor plan is going to be. We might even get a situation where it's a Jed and Marcellus type deal where the veto holder doesn't use the veto. There's a lot of wild stuff going on here. Let's break it down. We're going to start with what started off the dailies was Hope and Kuzi. So first off, she kind of asked him like, hey, what are your thoughts on Renee? Like, you know, how do you feel about her in the game? He's like, oh, she's very trustworthy, but she's always been on the block. So she never really had that head start the rest of us did, where she got to play the game really the way she wanted to. She's always kind of been behind the 8 ball on that one. But again, very trustworthy. She asked his thoughts on Nene, which he says, look, she's chilling, right? Like, we don't really talk game a lot, but personally, we get along great, right? The relationship's good there. But game-wise, he's got no clue. And then Kuzi says, okay, between the two, Nene over Renee then? Okay, I get it. And she says, the one thing, though, with her is, like, why do people keep putting Renee up? Like, it doesn't make sense to her. So she eventually says she's kind of looking more as Dan as an option, right? Because he has no plans in the future that would involve her. So she would want Dan out. Hope kind of agrees, like, yeah, Dan would probably be someone good to go. He wishes JM would have stayed. Again, people bringing that up. And she says she hasn't had any like in-depth talks with anyone, which I assume is a lie. And Hope actually kind of calls her out on that. He's like, you talked to Zach last night. And she was like, yeah, I was talking to Zach, but he was making a pitch that I really didn't want to hear at the moment. So it wasn't like a thing. And that meeting apparently is important. So we'll talk about that later on because it gets fleshed out a little bit more. And Hope was on the block. This is where we learn that Hope was an initial nominee, and he actually thanks Kuzi. He's like, thank you for putting me up because that gave me the chance to win the veto. He won the veto and 5K. And they kind of talk about, you know, what's Hope's thinking of Daniel and Nika after this. So Hope's like, you know, what about Daniel and Nika? Like, do you trust them, right? And she's like, yeah, of course I trust them, but I don't know if they're able to play the game well enough to really work with. So she's still trying to play on that. And Dan, Hope says that, listen, like, I'm on board with whatever you want to do. Dan seems like a good option though, because he's probably the only one that worries Hope in any of these competitions because he's so good at comps. So going out of that was like, okay, seems like everything is going to plan, at least for the most part. It felt like from there we kind of learned without hearing that Vanessa won the safety, because it seems like Vanessa would have been on the block. But since she won the safety, that threw all the wrench in the plans. And it was like, all right, well, we need a new nominee to go up against Santina. And Hope, being Hope, probably was like, I'll do it. He was probably like, I'll do it. No worries. Put me in, coach. So that seems like maybe what happened. And then Hope went on to win veto, which is now where it's like, okay, well, now who's the replacement nominee going to be going up against Santina? We then end up getting a conversation with Anika and Daniel. And this is where things start getting real crazy. Because Anika says there's so many reasons to get Ty out, but Kuzi doesn't see it. And Daniel agrees. And he says, I don't even think we can push it because she doesn't see it. And he thinks it's going to be Zach. Wait, what? We just heard Kuzi and Hope talking and it seemed like, oh, it's going to be Dan. But she obviously was just lying to Hope because, again, they don't really have much of a working relationship going on right now. Even though there was somebody on Twitter trying to push that was a big alliance going on. But I was like, you got no clue what's going on. Anyway, they were talking about voting about how Daniel wouldn't vote Zach out over Santina. Apparently, there was a lot that went on. So Kuzi told them that Zach and Ty were actually pitching for them to go up next week. And then Anika tells him about a conversation she had where Ty was trying to say that he was doing things this way, and like she kind of called him out on it, like saying like, listen, like I see what you do, and like I don't know if I trust you, and basically just literally called him out. And then he was trying to like say his like thing. He was like, oh, like I don't mean it to come off this way, and it was kind of like a little confrontation that the two of them had. It's wild. Like I can't wait to see this play out on the episode. I wish we got to watch it play out on the feeds, but again, that's a whole nother story. Daniel also doesn't like the idea of keeping Santina this week because apparently Santina also called them out as a group, being the Kuzi, Anika, and Daniel kind of group. So he's like, well, she was calling us out on that. Like, why is keeping her around going to be good? Because she's probably going to go after us. But it seems like Kuzi wants Zach over Ty because he has control over Daniel. And Daniel's like, I'm tired of people trying to be like, oh, I'm here, I'm helping you. Like, I'm a grown man, I can do what I want. And he's got a point there. But it does seem like Kuzi sees how close Daniel and Zach are, and she wants to separate that so that there's no possibility of Daniel potentially turning on her later down the line, which all makes sense. Plus, I think in Kuzi's head, she knows how much she trusts Ty and how close Ty and Zach is. So for Kuzi, it does make sense to get rid of Zach because it can set up you further and get you closer to people who are potentially his allies and make sure they're your allies first and foremost. We then get Kuzi and Anika, and they start talking about how Ty and Zach are potential nominees. Anika says, like, listen, like, Ty is more upfront with the game. Zach, sneaky. Oh, I literally called Zach sneaky. Like, yeah, that's his name, sneaky. Zach is more sneaky. And then Kuzi also says how she doesn't like that he's flirting with Daniel, which is a thing that I don't necessarily think we've seen. And maybe it's something that is happening, but also it could just be just like she's getting that vibe from it, and maybe she feels like Daniel's being manipulated by it. But it could also just be good, fun banter. I don't know. I think it maybe is a little harsh to condemn it for being something more than it might not be. And she says this isn't to weaken Daniel, but to strengthen him and make sure that Zach isn't, a weakness for him. Dan actually comes in while they're having this conversation, and he's just came to listen to music and do cardio. But like, it was kind of awkward because he's got music in. If I was Dan, the music would be off. It would be off because they were whispering while he was still in the room, and they continue to talk about the gameplay, even though he's in there like doing cardio, just kind of like dancing around, shadow boxing and stuff. So it was kind of weird. But they continue to whisper, and Kuzi says like, putting that guy up isn't a priority. Talking about Dan, who's in the room but can't see her, right? Because he's in the bathroom while they're in the other part of the HOH. Anika is pushing Ty to go up over Zach because, again, Zach's sneaky, but he's already a target. Ty is someone who hasn't gotten a lot of the heat from all these moves, and he's better at the competitions than Zach is. Kuzi says it's kind of for her more of a moral issue now at this point. Like, she can't stand to lose to Zach, right? She doesn't want to be even associated with how he's playing. She would be more okay if Ty would end up beating her somehow, but she doesn't want to see Zach here. So she hasn't told Ty about putting him up yet, but that's the next big conversation we get is Kuzi and Ty, where she kind of, feels like Zach was making her look really stupid with the idea that, Renee should go up and that's what Zach was pushing. So we talked about the conversation that Hope talked about where Kuzi and Zach talked the night before, which she was like, oh, he was like pushing a thing that I didn't really want to hear at the moment. Sounds like he was pushing the idea that Renee should be the one going up on the block or potentially as a backdoor or whatever the situation would be. And she was just not having that. She feels like it would be stupid of her just to put up Renee because she's not really a threat. Ty was trying to say that she should be looking at Dan and Zach. She tells Ty that she's looking at Dan and Zach as the replacements because, again, she doesn't want to be associated with Zach because of the way he moves. And she even mentions the flirting with Daniel again. And she feels like putting up Renee or Nene would be just a waste of her HOH. And she doesn't want to waste it, right? Because you only can get this power so many times, right? And it's not guaranteed that she'll ever get it again. So she doesn't want it to be a waste. And she thinks if she does that, it's just not making a big move. And she also thinks like if she did just put them up, not only is it not making a big move, but others will see it as, their move, being Ty and Zach's move, not hers. Ty says he understands all that, right? Like he tries to kind of be like, listen, I get it, right? Like, but you have to think of what would happen if you put Dan up or what would happen if you put Zach up. She said, if you put Dan up, you're going to make people like Nene mad. You'll probably end up making that Claudia mad from that. Vanessa, right? Like you'd end up pissing other people off. Zach would be upset with you, right? So you're going to make more people mad if you do that. Plus, if you put Zach up, like he says, like, do you even have the numbers? Which he kind of says, like, yeah, I have the numbers. Like, I'm pretty sure it would be fine. And it was really just kind of a back and forth of him trying to say, like, I get it, but are you thinking it through, right? Because you don't want to make yourself a target. He brings up that, like, if she does this, people will kind of look at her like Santina is seen now, where she's kind of, snaky and making these moves and it's like unpredictable. He asked her, like, did you come here to win or did you come here just to make big moves? She's like, I came here to win, but I came here also to play a game that she respects. So she's like, listen, if people are going to think I'm like Santina, I'm ready for that smoke. She is full on ready for that. And things actually end up getting a little heated, at least from Kuzi. Ty, as awkward as he is sometimes, and like sometimes like the way he talks to people does seem a little condescending and like he feels like he might be even above them a little bit. And I don't think he even thinks that. It's just the way he comes off can feel like that sometimes. He doesn't ever get like loud, right? Like he'll have an argument with you, but like he'll talk it through very calmly, right? He doesn't raise his voice. He keeps things very relaxed, but at the same time, he's asserting his position, right? And pushing his points without being too aggressive with it. And Kuzi here, she's like, don't, just stop. Because Ty starts saying, well, like, you're talking about how like Renee possibly could have, more of a game than I could even see and stuff like that. And she's like, no, I was using that as an example. Ty, stop trying to put stuff in my head. Like it started to get heated because again, it kind of goes back and forth. No progress is really made with either of them, getting their agenda across to the other. It's just like, I want to put Zach up because I think it's the best move for me. And he says, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think you should put Zach or Dan up. You should put Renee or Nene up. And again, it just kind of goes back and forth with, him telling her that you're going to make yourself a target and it's ruffling feathers. And Kuzi just wants to make moves that matters. They do end up talking about the Daniel and Anika thing about how Ty alluded to putting them up next week. And he kind of clarified, he's like, listen, like, I wouldn't put them up, right? Like, there's other people that would go up way before them, but if needed, right? Like, I don't see them as someone that really would hurt putting up necessarily. But like, he's like, I'd put Renee up, I'd put Shania up, I'd put, Vanessa up all before them. So it was one of those things where it seems like that conversation with Ty and Zach really was something that had a big part in Kuzi not wanting to work with them anymore, because that was them pushing their agenda. Even though maybe it seems like it was possibly misunderstood by Kuzi, even the idea that their name was brought up at all is like putting red flags up in her head. And that's where she's like, I'm done. Like, this is what it is. but she still kind of trusts Ty and feels like getting Zach out first would free up Daniel and Anika more than it would getting Ty out because he's more with her anyway. It's wild. So there was a little bit of a break there where we got kind of another little conversation that doesn't matter. It was just kind of personal stuff. But then we got Ty kind of pacing alone in the room, and we don't get all of it. And I don't even hear the first word that he says. He could be saying like, I'm not, or she's not, or even like, you're not. I don't know what it is, but he's pacing back and forth. And what he ends up saying is like, not about to mess up my game. Like, not me, like not happening. So again, I don't know if it means like he's not going to mess up his game or she's not. I assume it's she's not, like Kuzi's not going to mess up his game, because then he goes looking for Kuzi, but she was in the DR. He ends up finding Claudia in the storage room, and she's like, oh, how did the conversation with Kuzi went? He's like, oh, we'll see. Like, gives her nothing. Gives her absolutely nothing. Then he finds Dan right outside as well, which he says to Dan, like, hey, like, we'll have to figure some stuff out this week. We'll talk later. So, like, kind of like letting him know, like, things are going down. So he gave Dan more information than his showman's Claudia, which is wild. Eventually, though, he makes his way outside, and he joins Zach and Hope, who are in the middle of working out. We get like a cut, so we don't see exactly, but it felt like he was filling him in, but he wasn't. I think he was just saying like, I was talking to Kuzi and it's not good. And Zach says like, I feel like I know who it is. And then Ty, he kind of asks to talk to Hope, and he says, listen, I might need you to do something crazy. And he's like, listen, I'll take a bullet for you two. Hope's like, I'll do what you need me to do. It's like, I might need you to use the veto on Santina. Which is wild. I feel like you're better off just getting Hope not to use the veto. Because then if he doesn't use the veto, I feel like Santina will go, and you guys can just let Santina go. Because if he uses the veto on Santina instead of himself, Zach will still go up. And I feel like if it's Hope versus Zach, I feel like Zach still could go in that situation. We'll work on the numbers and we'll try and figure it out here in just a bit. But yeah, he pretty much is telling Hope he might need him not to use the veto on himself and take himself on the block, which honestly Hope might do. I don't know. I honestly don't know. He might not take himself off the block, which would be a crazy, crazy situation. But he says, listen, I haven't figured it out just yet. I don't know if she's going to do what I think she's going to do. Like, once she's made her decision and informs me, like, then we can make a decision. But Hope seems kind of on board with it, but also he might just be saying that now. Who knows? And then he tells Zach, like, you never should have talked to her. He's like, listen, you went and you talked to her and apparently pushed Renee. It came off aggressive to her, and now she's thinking you and Dan. And he's like, me? Wait, what? Like, oh, like, he's like, this could be my game. This could be the end of my game. And that's kind of where the daily ends. That's what we got. So wild stuff here where potentially we could see Zach going up on the block as a backdoor. We could see it being Dan as a backdoor. We could see Hope not using the veto at all. Ooh, let's look at our alliance chart here and see if we can figure some stuff out. I've made a few little changes, and I think this is a really good representation of where things are at right now. Maybe you could even add Ty and Hope as like a duo, or add him in closer to Zach and Ty as a trio. But also, like, I don't know if he's just playing along with them and more of just a free agent role, which is, I think, where he's really at right now. So you've got the middle, which is Anika, Kuzi, and Daniel. You got Renee, Nene, and Claudia. They're all the people that are right dead in the middle, right? They're not leaning either way. You got Jonathan and Santina on one side. You got Ty and Zach on the other. Hope and Dan seem like they're the free agents that are more on Ty and Zach's side. Vanessa is the free agent that would be more on Jonathan and Santina's side, mainly Jonathan, just she's very anti-Zach. That's the main thing. Then you got a bunch of the pairings down there. If the nomination stayed the same and it's Santina and Hope, I would imagine Santina would be evicted. I think Renee, Nene, Claudia all vote to keep Hope. I think Anika, Daniel, and Kuzi, well, Kuzi wasn't vote, but Anika and Daniel would vote to keep Hope. I think Ty and Zach, they're question marks, but they would probably end up keeping Hope. Dan would keep Hope. Jonathan might give Santina a vote, but he also is really close to Hope, so I think he would keep Hope as well. And then Vanessa would probably keep Hope. I think that would be the most clear thing that would happen is if Ty or if Hope does not use the veto, which would end up being Ty convincing him not to use the veto. Now, the other situation that we could end up seeing here is Hope takes himself off, which is probably the most likely scenario, right? Is that Hope takes himself off the block, and then Zach would end up going up as a replacement. So you got Zach and Santina. This is where it gets tough. Daniel and Anika would probably end up doing what Kuzi wants, but Daniel was very much on the fence where he would maybe want to keep Zach more. Claudia, Shanae, and Renee and Shania. Those three are question marks because they don't trust Santina. They would like to keep girls' numbers, but they don't necessarily trust Zach either. I could see them going either way. It would be kind of up in the air there. Vanessa, guaranteed vote for Zach to go. Jonathan probably would be a vote for Zach to go. So you're looking at 2 guaranteed for Zach to go. Ty, Dan, and Hope would be 3 guaranteed to keep Zach. Daniel might even vote to keep Zach, so that would be 4 with 2. And then you got the 3 in the middle there, who are the big ones that are question marks. Anika could go with Kuzi, so it could be 3-4. It could even be 2-5, because Anika knows that Zach has to go, but also would like to see Ty go before Zach, so she would probably be okay with voting Zach out. So let's just put her on votes out Zach. So you got Zach with 3, you got Santina with 4 votes. It all comes down to what Renee, Shania, and Claudia would do. To be honest with you, I don't know. I could see them going and being like, let's just keep the girl, get rid of the guy. But I could also see them saying, like, we don't trust Santina and we would trust Zach and Ty more because that's like Ty's guy and Claudia's with Ty, and it's a complicated situation. It's a really complicated one. So what if it ended up being Dan on the block versus Santina? Also complicated. Renee, Nene, and Claudia much more clearly, I think, would actually vote to keep Dan over Santina than Zach over Santina. Anika and Daniel, I don't know. They would probably go, yeah, let's just get rid of Dan. But they also don't trust Santina. Vanessa would be a tough one. I think she would be kind of more on getting rid of Santina than getting rid of Dan. Jonathan also probably more on getting rid of Santina than Dan. Hope as well probably would go keeping Dan. So that one's even a little bit more clear where Santina ends up going. And then there's also the potential that Hope takes down Santina and keeps Zach. And then in that situation, I don't know. I think Hope would stay, but also if someone doesn't use the veto on themselves, like, do you let them stay after that? I don't know. I really don't know. It would be a wild situation. I don't see that one happening necessarily, but it could. It very well could. This is completely wild. I think most likely we're going to see Santina versus Zach on the block. But even then, that is not 100% Zach's gone or Santina's gone. Either one of them could end up being evicted from the house. What do you guys think of what's going on in the house right now? Are you as excited for these episodes coming up? We've got 3 of them coming up tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday night will be the eviction. Let me know in those comments down below. If you are new here, though, hit that subscribe button. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, smash that like button. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a video, you never miss a stream. Check out the links to all of my socials in the link down below in the comments. There's a pinned comment down there in the description, all of my links as well. For my Twitter, my Twitch, my Discord, the brand new Kick channel. Go follow the Kick channel. We're trying to get that up and running as well. So thank you so much for all the support you guys give me on all the different platforms. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you next time.